everyone, my name is Catherine Tao and I'm the host of the Data Standard Audio Experience. Once again, we have an awesome guest. We have Kevin Imboden, the Director of Research and the Data Advisory Group at Cushman & Wakefield. Today, we're going to be speaking about challenges with finding and collecting data. And so welcome to the show, Kevin. I'm very excited to speak with you and just learn more about your background.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for having me, Catherine.
Yeah. So can you just start with telling the audience more about your background so we can get a sense of just kind of what you do for your everyday life?
Sure. I guess starting at the beginning chronologically, economics degree from UC Santa Cruz. That was just because I was curious about what goes on in the global macroeconomy. There was no real plan behind it. So after graduation, bounced around a little bit, banking, insurance, and then I was very fortunate to stumble upon a company that did data and analytics for the commercial real estate market. And I thought, okay, now I got somewhere. Now we had something that was interesting, because using the commercial real estate market as a proxy for the global economy often works. I think it's most of what happens in commercial real estate is reflective of what's going on in the economy. And understanding those global capital flows and crunching the numbers behind that based on the real estate sales was very interesting. And so spent many years at that company, and then I did a little consulting, and then moved on to Cushman & Wakefield, where we're working. My current job is specifically around the data center industry. So certainly growing industry. We're all using tons and tons of data, especially in the last year with all of us stuck at home. And we're on the cusp of something big. I think the industry is just getting started compared to what it is now and what it has been in the past several years. So I think that's a global story again. It's an exciting one. I think all companies have to change their data platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially during this time or every time where tech is always evolving, it's always changing throughout the years. So it's so important for companies to keep up. And data science as a whole is kind of a newer topic in the recent years. And it's just a lot of businesses I've heard are trying to catch up, and just competition in general. And so that brings me to my next question is just from your experience, do you have any certain tips and tricks that you have for people trying to find and collect the right type of data for their business?
Well, I think sometimes you get caught up in looking for the perfect data set, right? You're looking for partners that are going to deliver everything to you at once. And from my experience dealing with dozens of data partners around the world, that almost never happens. I think there are limits to what they're looking for and what you're looking for. And probably you're looking for something much more comprehensive than what they have in file. So I think you have to find sort of a give and take relationship. It's better than nothing. Absolutely. You want to build the strength of that relationship, and then you want to help them out. Okay, hey, this is what we're looking for, and this is how we found those gaps. And so going forward, can we expand the relationship? And I think globally, in all my data relationships, I've been able to build on that. Okay, let me share with you what I found. You can share with me what you've redone, and then we can keep that circle going. And I think that builds a strong ecosystem. I think there's a tendency to be scared of giving away proprietary data. And certainly we all want to be careful with that. But I think also some of that proprietary data is useless without having the bigger platform to expand on it. And so I think if you're talking about a data in one region of the world, it's of limited value unless you have context. And so I think building those bigger relationships are the bigger story. And then just making sure that you're consistent. I think across borders, there's an assumption that what you're looking for is always the same, or that there are certain terms, especially in technical real estate, that are always defined the same. And that's never the case. You have to understand local terminology, what we're looking for, and then making sure that we agree on it. So I think all of those factors are a lot of work, but they end up being useful in the long run, because that's how you build deeper data and correct data.
Yeah, I completely agree. The team collaboration aspect, especially just being able to bounce off ideas with each other, that is super helpful. And it's super important also. I heard from a lot of other guests that we've had about just networking and just speaking even outside of your team, but still within the company or even outside of your company, just to be able to bounce off ideas. Super important just for your own skills development as well. And so with just collecting data and finding data, what are some challenges that you've seen with doing so?
Well, I think the big thing is the terminology part and understanding and simple things that you would think wouldn't be a big issue. But sometimes if you're importing huge data sets and you're doing this through several times a day, then you end up with, oh, I thought that building measurement was square footage. It was in square meters. Now we have to do conversion. Now we have to go back. It's a simple thing, but then if you're not being careful when you import, then you have all those other issues when you're doing the analytics, because you're like, well, wait a minute, the pricing is all off. Okay, a simple fix, but you didn't notice it at the time. And so I think those are some of the challenges, and also just, again, being willing to do the grunt work, so to speak, do the grind it out, go find those extra data points that you need. If your partner wasn't able to, I'm willing to bet if you have 10, 15 years of digging for the data, you can do it yourself. Is that time consuming? Do you wish you could automate it? Sure. Eventually you can. You can do sorts of web scraping that we all do and things like that, but sometimes you have to be willing to be manual with it. If you're willing to, then you can wind up with a data set that no one else has, because you're combining the local expertise with your data expertise. And that's the sort of like the non-sexy part, right? Like, we all want to talk about visualization. We all want to talk about how we automate everything, but sometimes you just got to do it. It's unfortunate, but it happens.
Yeah, great insight. I totally agree. And so, just with finding data, I've spoken to a lot of different people on our podcast in the past, saying that sometimes it's difficult to have people be able to trust the data and know that it's usable. So, are there any key indicators that you kind of look for when you have a data set? How do you know it's trustable and usable? Yeah, what are just some things that you look for?
You have to test. I mean, you simply have to test. Can you replicate this result somewhere? If you're looking at property details, property transactions, financing, all those details, you're usually able to find something. It might be something that you can back up through news sources. It might be something you can back up through title records, you name it. So you start looking for the some things, and then talk with the data partner about, okay, I found this, this, and this, and I'm just curious where you found these other two items, because I couldn't find it. If they say we got that from a partner, these are our partners, you can start building some trust there. I think if that's a consistent reply, and you have something you can build off of, and that's something that you feel comfortable with. Because oftentimes I've had the same question from our clients. It's like, okay, how did you find this? Because this isn't anywhere out there. And okay, well, I've sourced it from these three people. And I think that's the other part of it too, is just being careful and able to sort of tag where you're getting this data. You can get some of this from a partner, but some of the deep intel is directly from conversations. And then that goes back to the relationship building thing, but that also is very hard to prove, right? Yeah, you say you got it from someone involved in a real estate deal, but how do you prove it? Well, okay, you kind of have to trust me, and then you have to build your own trust with your clients, because the client has to trust you now because you have information that no one else does. So I think this is part of the relationship building process, is eventually, if you have enough good data that people believe in, and you provided good insight, good analytics, then okay, they're willing to forgive you if they can't double source anything. And so I think it's the grind it out part, but that grind it out eventually builds the rapport and the relationships and the trust.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so, my final question for you is just, do you have any last advice for the audience, just in terms of the data collection process in general?
I mentioned earlier, just be willing to go through it. I mean, if you have a goal to have the cleanest data set and you want to show that to the industry, then you have to do what it takes. Nothing, assume that nothing's beneath. I know in the past that set up different rewards for different teams, so to speak. So, okay, we have this big project. We weren't able to automate. We got to grind it out. Let's do it over the next 3 days. Whoever puts in the most, or who is ever able to fill in the most data, gets whatever it might be, a big prize, or something along those lines. Try to gamify it a little bit, because we all know it's a lot of work and we all don't want to do it, but we have to. And the end result is great, and so we have to just incentivize ourselves to get through it. And so I think if you're able to do that and make it interesting for yourself, you actually are able to understand your data a lot better. Once you get the ins and outs of things, instead of just doing the straight import all the time and going to your model, well, okay, now I went nitty gritty with it and I understand what it's made up of. And that's extremely valuable too in the long run.
Yeah, and that's awesome insight there. Now I just want to just talk about more about our company, the Data Standard. So we're trying to build a community of data thought leaders and data enthusiasts, just so everybody can have a place where they can network and collaborate with each other during this time of the pandemic, when everyone's kind of in this remote world, everyone's working from home. And so what can our community do for you?
Oh, I think it just goes back to networking in general, just understanding what other people are doing with their data and just getting new, fresh ideas. I think we all have, I certainly do. But I think most people have a tendency to get stuck in their workflow, and they're unable to build outside the box and find some things that they haven't thought of. And so the more new ideas we can get, especially now when we're all stuck at our own homes, I mean, that's a huge plus. And I think if we can do that virtually or eventually in person, then I consider it like just as breath of fresh air, really. I mean, I love going to conferences. I love talking to as many people as possible because then I learn so much. And so that's a great community to be a part of.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate that conferences can't be kind of held throughout the past year and sometime in the next few months.
Well, and
But yeah, we're
Catherine, I
just
can
trying.
tell you, like, I was supposed to be in Hawaii this week for a conference, so especially that one.
Ooh. What was the
Too
conference
bad.
for?
It's the Pacific Telecommunications Council. So it's in telecoms data centers. They probably get somewhere around 10,000 people a year.
Wow,
So
yeah.
they're trying to do it virtually right now, but I mean, everyone would rather be in Hawaii, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a bit unfortunate that of course conference like in-person conferences aren't really happening. But yeah, we just got to make the best of networking online with each other and going to conferences online. Yeah, but where can our community connect with you and just find you online?
you can find me on LinkedIn. I mean, that's the most basic way. That's how most people find me. That's honestly, for better or for worse, that ends up being the only social media I really work with. You can find a lot of what we're doing on the research side on the Cushman and Wakefield website. If you look at Cushman and Wakefield, go to the insights part of the website, you'll see a ton of research on the market. And then if you search data center, you'll find all the things I've been working on. So there's plenty of content on there if you're curious.
Awesome. And for more information on the data standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io. And this episode is sponsored by Pandio. They're the new tech startup, and they're working with Apache Pulsar messaging systems. So learn more about their work at pandio.com. And thank you so much, Kevin, for speaking with me. It was great speaking with you and just learning more about just some tips and tricks about how to better collect data, how to gather data before we do the fun part of making the models and seeing everything work. So thank you for that insight.
Oh, thanks for having me, and always willing to talk to anyone about it.